Two major American banks in legal hot water. They're accused of not following the new federal law that's supposed to help millions of Americans from losing their homes to foreclosure. Here's the deal. If a troubled homeowner who qualifies for the new law makes lower modified payments for 3 months, fills out all the necessary paperwork, then the banks are supposed to make those modifications long term. But a class action lawsuit now claims that Bank of America and Wells Fargo are not doing their part, even foreclosing on some homeowners who've made those 3 payments. So what in the world is going on? Joining me now, author of Foreclosure Nation, Mortgaging the American Dream, real estate attorney Shari Olefson. Shari, thanks for being with us. You know, look, in a contract, both parties must perform their respective obligations. Now here, you know, if the homeowner makes the payments for 3 months, the bank has to modify the mortgage long term. Does it appear, from what we know, that the two banks breached their obligations?
You know, it might be, and essentially you're right. These homeowners are fighting back. What they're claiming is that the contract was really between Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and the United States government, and under those contracts, the bank agreed with the government that they would modify these loans under President Obama's HAMP program, which of course stands for Home Affordable Modification, right, under the Making Homes Affordable plan. And the question is going to be, and these homeowners are essentially saying that the banks then breached that obligation, right, and that the homeowners were harmed because of that. So essentially this is going to turn on the same things that any lawsuit turns on, which is whether, right, or not these homeowners can prove the legal elements of a contract. Sure, and a breach of contract. But look, the defense of the banks, from what I read, is, well, you know, we're not intentionally doing this. You know, the last time I checked, that's kind of the oops defense. And contract law doesn't recognize the oops defense. It's immaterial what your intent is, right? A breach is a breach. It is, but there are some other factors, and there's some legal arguments that the bank is going to have in these situations that are good factors. For example, the bank is going to come back and say, well, what is a breach? What is a reasonable level of performance for us under these agreements? And to answer that question, they're going to say, let's go ahead and look at the Treasury's own report card on HAMP. And when the judge looks at that, he's going to see, look at this. It turns out that Wells Fargo is performing just as well as any other bank in this area. In fact, last month, Wells had modified or looked at 38% of their loans that were qualified for modification, and actually was one of the top performers in converting the permanent to the
comfort
temporary
to people who are not getting the modification as they were promised. Look, is it fair to say that this HAMP, or Home Affordable Modification Program, which is the government's big plan to reduce mortgage failures, has itself been a failure?
I think most people will agree. And you know what? None of us like to see Americans lose their homes. But in a legal scenario, we've got to decide who's really responsible for that. Now, these particular homeowners in these cases, some of them stopped paying their mortgages as early as April of 2007. They're now claiming that they did this, they were damaged in reliance on HAMP. Well, HAMP didn't even come into effect until February of 2009. Right. You know, and
that's overreaching under contract law, no doubt about that. Look, I got one question left for you. Could the U.S. government enact an emergency moratorium on foreclosures? After all, FDR shut down banks, froze accounts. I remember Nixon instituted the wage and price controls. Could Congress and or the president claim that exigent circumstances right now demand a freeze on foreclosures to arrest the free fall?
You know what, Greg, that sounds really sexy, but I think that for the administration, a lot of making home affordable, and in particular HAMP, because remember, making home affordable has 3 different components, has become really a PR problem, and that may be something that they're talking about doing, but it's definitely not a good idea to do. Yeah. I mean, all it's going to do is delay the damage here, cause more costs, and lead more people towards false hopes, which is one of the big problems that HAMP has created.
I'd go for the sexy, but that's me. Shari Olefson, real estate and business attorney, thanks so much for being with us. Good to see you.
Take care.
Go for the sexy.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah.